South America. It's the world's fourth largest continent, with a history stretching back roughly 14,000 years. As you might expect, many different countries have come and gone during this period of time, including a number of which you may have never heard of before. In this video, we'll be exploring some of these from the continent's more recent history, and more specifically, those of a particular subregion, the Southern Cone. Okay, first off, let's define the area. South America has a number of subregions, but we're going to be focusing on this one. The Southern Cone is a geographic and cultural subregion that comprises the southernmost area of South America, covering Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay. 4 Brazilian states, along with Paraguay, are sometimes also considered part of the Southern Cone and will be included here. So that's 5 countries, 6 if we include the UK, as the Falkland Islands are a British overseas territory. And it wasn't so long ago, in a historical sense, the first country we're going to be looking at emerged from one of the Spanish Empire's 4 viceroyalties. That country is the United Provinces of Rio de la Plata, which declared independence during the Congress of Tucumán in 1816. Made up from the territories of the former viceroyalty, the United Provinces was, for a time, one of the largest countries in South America, with its capital at Buenos Aires. However, many of the same problems that begat the May Revolution and Argentine War of Independence would ultimately lead to its breakup. Chief among these was the issue of regionalism. The former viceroyalty of Rio de la Plata had been vast, and most populated areas were essentially isolated from each other. Consider the differences between cities in Upper Peru or even Mendoza with that of Buenos Aires and Montevideo. Conflict soon arose over political organization, which itself prevented the formation of a stable government until the Argentine Constitution of 1853. However, before that occurred, several new countries would emerge, including Bolivia, Uruguay, and the Argentine Confederation. Now, this change didn't happen overnight, and there were some other short-lived countries worth mentioning. Before you even had the United Provinces, the Federal League, or League of Free Peoples, declared independence from Spain back in 1815. Under the leadership of José Gervasio Artigas, the Federal League aimed to establish a confederation of provinces and sent a delegation to the previously mentioned Congress of Tucumán. Here, it argued for a government model in which all provinces would be on equal footing and accountable to their own peoples through direct democratic means. The delegation, however, was excluded from the Congress due to formalities, and the Federal League would later dissolve when it joined the United Provinces in 1820. At its largest extent, the League extended over the territories of present-day Uruguay, the southern Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul, and 5 Argentine provinces. One of which, Entre Ríos, proclaimed itself a republic in 1820. Although originally a supporter of the May Revolution, the man behind the republic, Francisco Ramirez, had increasingly become critical of those advocating for a unitary state. While supporters of the Federalist cause, like himself, ultimately prevailed against their Unitarian foes at the Battle of Cepeda, Ramirez still continued to eye those in Buenos Aires with suspicion. And so, following elections organized in late November 1820, in which Ramirez became supreme chief, he proclaimed the Republic of Entre Ríos. The flag of the Federal League was adopted as the Republic's own, as were 2 seals, one with a scale pierced by a pike, the other featuring a raya's feather. It should be noted that Ramirez likely didn't aim for the Republic to secede, but rather anticipated it would join others in a confederation, possibly going so far as uniting all provinces of the former Spanish viceroyalties of Rio de la Plata and Peru. Hence his use of the Federal League's flag. All was for naught, however, as the Republic of Entre Ríos would not outlast Ramirez himself, who was killed on July 10, 1821. Equally short-lived was the Republic of Tucumán, which came into being following the previously mentioned Battle of Cepeda. Things fell apart rather quickly, with 2 of the Republic's 3 provinces rebelling. Bernabé Arauz, the Republic's first annulling president, tried regaining control of the situation, but was deposed in 1821. Surprisingly, Arauz would return and become Tucumán province's governor the following year, but was soon forced into exile in a neighboring province. He was then arrested, brought back to Tucumán, and executed without trial. Supposedly, his last request before facing the firing squad was for a cigarette. Knocking away the ashes, he said, "Human existence is like these ashes," and then calmly faced his death. With the Federal Pact of 1831, the United Provinces became the Argentine Confederation, which, following adoption of the 1853 Constitution, became the Argentine Republic, also known simply as Argentina. However, just before this occurred, a coup in Buenos Aires, often called the Revolution of 11 September 1852, saw that province break away from the Confederation, giving rise to the state of Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires continued to function as an independent republic until the Battle of Pavón in 1861, which secured its political dominance in a now reunified Argentine republic. Interestingly, when all of this was going on, a Frenchman by the name of Antoine de Tunas had proclaimed himself king of Araucanía and Patagonia, which makes up a pretty big part of modern-day Argentina, plus a bit of Chile. Now, for some context here, Patagonia, while claimed, was a sort of no man's land for most Europeans. There were even rumors that a race of giant humans, the Patagones, who stood nearly 13 to 15 feet tall and roared like bulls, lived in this harsh but stunningly beautiful landscape. That, however, was of no concern to Tunas, who decided to make his way over to the port city of Coquimbo in 1858. From here, he journeyed south to Araucanía and met with a number of Mapuche tribal leaders. Tunas promised modern weapons and French help in maintaining their independence from Chile, which resulted in him being given the title Toqui, or Axe-Bearer. Tunas then proclaimed the Kingdom of Araucanía and Patagonia in November 1860. Perquenco was designated as the kingdom's capital, while the Frenchmen created a flag and reportedly even had coins minted. Chilean President José Joaquín Pérez was having none of it though, and Tunas was arrested in January 1862. He was thereafter imprisoned, declared insane, and expelled to France that October. Unfortunately for the Mapuche, this also resulted in Araucanía being occupied and later annexed by Chile. But word soon began to spread that Tunas was back in 1870. Upon learning that his presence had been revealed, Tunas fled to Argentina, where a shipment of arms had just been seized by authorities in Buenos Aires. What's more, a French battleship anchored off Chile sparked rumors that Napoleon III was planning to intervene on the self-declared kingdom's behalf. This never came to be, though, and Tunas died penniless over in France. Traveling north, we have the Riograndense Republic, also sometimes called the Piracini Republic, a de facto state that seceded from the Empire of Brazil. Proclaimed on September 11, 1836 by General Antonio de Souza Neto, the Republic was itself a direct consequence of the still then ongoing Ragamuffin War, a Republican uprising in southern Brazil. Just a few years after independence, in July 1839, the Riograndense Republic formed a confederation with another breakaway state, the free and independent Catarinense Republic, more commonly known as the Juliana Republic. Proclaimed on July 29th after the capture of Laguna, in which a young Giuseppe Garibaldi fought, the Juliana Republic lasted only 4 months. The Riograndense Republic, in contrast, would remain for nearly a decade. It adopted a constitution on February 8, 1843, and was recognized by France, the United Kingdom, and Uruguay. However, when the Ragamuffin War finally came to an end with the signing of the Green Poncho Treaty, so too did the Riograndense Republic, which was reincorporated back into the Brazilian Empire on March 1, 1845. So we've still got more to cover, but if you'd like to hear more about other countries that no longer exist in other parts of Brazil and South America, check our friend Signore Galilei's video. We've got a sub-region theme collaboration going on here. Pretty sure my pronunciation is on point there.
Thanks! Over on my channel, Signore Galilei, you can find short explainers especially about history and geography. I've got an ongoing series about forgotten countries around the world, including one about northern South America for this collab. You might also like my videos about the forgotten Great Lakes, and my series Strait Talk about the world's straits. Hope to see you there, right after you're done with this video, that is. Thanks again, Ghost Countries.
In 1808, Napoleon Bonaparte attacked Spain and shortly thereafter deposed King Ferdinand VII. Meanwhile, over in the Captaincy General or Governorate of Chile, news about France's invasion and sudden dissolution of the Supreme Central Junta a body to govern the empire in absence of a legitimate king, resulted in the creation of the government junta of the Kingdom of Chile on September 18, 1810. This period of de facto independence came to an end, though, in October 1814, following the Battle of Rancagua, when Spanish forces defeated those under command of Bernardo O'Higgins, a wealthy landowner of Basque, Spanish, and Irish ancestry, during the reconquest of Chile. O'Higgins, nonetheless, would later become the state of Chile's first supreme director after the Army of the Andes' victory over the Spanish at the Battle of Chacabuco on February 12, 1817. Chile then became a republic exactly 1 year later in 1818. On June 4, 1932, however, a junta took power in Santiago, and following President Juan Esteban Montero's decision to resign, it declared the Socialist Republic of Chile. A few days later, the junta dissolved Congress and, among other things, pardoned those involved in the Chilean naval mutiny of 1931. The government juntas soon ran short on funds, though, and so instructed police to confiscate jewelry, while also declaring foreign currency at national and foreign banks operating in Chile was now property of the state. Likely owing to a lack of support even among fellow socialists, a state of emergency and press censorship were soon declared. Nonetheless, the looming threat of military intervention eventually saw the Socialist Republic disestablished in September 1932. Okay, so this might be stretching the boundaries of what is and isn't within the Southern Cone, but I felt I couldn't just not talk about the Kingdom of Rapa Nui. Perhaps better known as Easter Island, this special territory of Chile is located at the southeasternmost point of the Polynesian Triangle. Experts disagree over exactly when people first arrived on the island, although it's generally believed to have occurred sometime between 700 and 1200 AD. The island's ecosystem was, however, destabilized by unchecked deforestation and introduction of the Polynesian rat. Estimated to have had a population of around 2,000 to 3,000 people in 1722, new diseases like smallpox and tuberculosis, tribal warfare, and Peruvian blackbirding, aka slave raiding, whittled that number down to just 111 inhabitants by 1877. By this point, the Kingdom of Rapa Nui basically existed in name only, as much of the island had been purchased by a French mariner who failed to convince Paris to make the island a protectorate. Ownership of the island changed hands again before it was finally sold to the Chilean government on January 2, 1888. It was then formally annexed that September when a king designated by Catholic missionaries signed off on a treaty, as the supreme chief had died without any heirs. And that about does it for the Southern Cone. If there's any other forgotten countries you would have included, let us know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching.